from the Illinois State Capitol, this is your Capitol Connection.
Welcome to Capitol Connection. I'm Mark Maxwell. For the first time in years, it seems that a budget is almost a foregone conclusion in Springfield. And now lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are reaching above that starting point to find new ways to pay for roads, bridges, and other construction projects across the state in a big thing called a capital bill, an infrastructure plan. And joining us this week to start our show looking at two comparing plans, Rebecca Mason with the Chamber of Commerce and Marc Poulos with Local 150 Operating Engineers, a labor union there. I think, can we start by saying that anytime business and labor are on the same page in Springfield, that it bodes well something will get done?
I think the term is historic.
Yeah.
Historic. Okay. And how would it is interesting because we're going to get into the two. Your plans aren't identical, but there's a lot of overlap, isn't there?
Yes, there is, and we're hopeful that the two of us coming together is helpful in moving the conversation forward.
So, Mark, what's on the line here? What's at stake? What are some of the projects that people we know well about the roads and bridges that are crumbling that need repair? What else is there that might be paid for in a capital bill or an infrastructure bill?
Yeah, so, I think the two plans that we're going to talk today about really focus on what we call horizontal construction, so roads, bridges, and mass transit. That's only really half of what the capital needs are in the state of Illinois. You've got vertical construction, K through 12 education, colleges, universities, community colleges, not-for-profit hospitals, right? I mean, there's billions of dollars in deferred maintenance on that, but what you're going to hear today is that we're really focusing on the roads, bridges, and mass transit, mainly from a safety aspect of it. American Society of Civil Engineers, right, rate roads and bridges around the country. We rate quite poorly when it comes to that. Good examples, Lakeshore Drive closed down, right, for a period of time because you had a structural defect. You've got ratings of some bridges at a 6 out of 100 around the state. So we've got a major problem, and I think both of these bills do something to address that.
And universities and some of these non-for-profit hospitals, other places like that, are also here in the State House asking for some funding in a capital bill. So it's likely that some of those horizontal or vertical, rather, projects get included in here, or do we have a read on that yet?
I think we've heard from legislative leaders and the governor that they would like to tie them together. We've put forth a transportation bill because the chamber thinks that, we're investing in our infrastructure and that's what makes sure business can continue to operate, and because that's our area of expertise, but happy to continue participating in conversations. And
the deferred maintenance is interesting because these are projects that could have, perhaps should have been paid for 3, 4, 5 years ago, and they're just piling up. So what becomes the exponential cost factor over time if we don't take care of the problems and we're then having a hard time building new things too, because we're going back to, that sort of has a snowball effect, I would imagine.
That's exactly right. That's the position we're in. When you look at vertical construction, people ask the question, why do we need a capital bill to fund an HVAC repair project at a university? Or why do we need a capital bill to fund some type of construction about a new wing at a community college? Doesn't the tuition itself take into account, right, what that operational expense is? And the reality of it is it's not just 3, 4, 5 years, it's 50 years, right? The things have built up over time and have just become dilapidated, whether it's a state building, whether it's certain buildings at college and universities, K through 12 education. Those things are just in terrible shape in a lot of places in the state. And the same is true for the roads and bridges. It's like Rebecca said, our focus in these two bills is roads, bridges, and mass transit, but we are certainly open to the idea of also funding vertical construction projects for all those different entities within the state. The problem is finding the funding source to pay for those.
Right, and the price tag and who pays for it. We're going to get into that in just a moment, too. I want to explore, though, quickly before we get into this, it's been a while since there's been a capital bill here. What has been the political obstacle to getting this done in the recent past, and how do we know that we're not going to run into that as a state again this time around?
I think that there's been concern about talking about making new investment in our infrastructure without a budget in place. So I think that's certainly been a factor recently, as well as, traditionally capital bills are things that governors ask for, and our governor has asked for one. So hopefully that will also help to speed things along. But I also think just the condition of the infrastructure has gotten so bad, we're at a point where people are noticing every day.
Does it become this thing where different regions or parts of the state or representatives or senators are sort of competing for a piece of the pie to get that project in their district? Is that something where this could be truly bipartisan? Members are being dealt in, so to speak?
Yeah, I truly believe either one of these bills that you picked is a bipartisan bill. There's needs in every single district in every single 102 counties in the state of Illinois that there should be legislators from both sides of the aisle, from every region of the state that are willing to vote for this particular package. In our bill, Local 150's bill that we presented, it's a pay-as-you-go model. So there's not necessarily a particular list of projects that you would fund. That list of projects is already existent in the secure MYP at IDOT or in a local roads and streets program at a local level. It would just be more money pumped into an already existing system. In the Chamber's proposal, there's a pay-as-you-go model, but there's also a bonding component. That bonding component allows you the ability to then have particular projects that are selected and that are funded through the bonding portion of
or
that
long
bill.
term. So let's get into that too, because the one portion of this that we haven't mentioned yet, and everybody looks at this, is the gas tax. Currently in Illinois, the gas tax is 19 cents a gallon. There's also a sales tax. I believe your plan would double that, up to 19 cents, or 38 cents, adding 19 cents. Your plan is a little bit trickier. There's a couple steps here. Why is that? And it jumps up to, I think, an additional 25 cents when this is all said and done.
Yes, but there's a reduction in the sales tax, which is about a 10-cent reduction. So ours is, to the consumer, a 15-cent increase. The reason that it was important...
Why not do all at once? What's the strategy there?
So the sales tax funds general revenue fund, and we wanted to be aware of that impact and give time for, hopefully, general revenue funds to catch up and cover that hole.
So you're punching a hole in the general revenue fund, yes, essentially.
Right. So we want to do that over time, more slowly, so there was an opportunity
right
for growth to make up for that. And then it was important to us to include that because voters, when they go to the pump, they think that the taxes they're paying are going to roads and bridges, and we think that it's important that that happen in order to be honest with the voters.
Okay, so there's the pay-as-you-go, and then there's the bonding that Mark mentioned a moment ago. It's sort of like taking out a big credit card, I suppose. How do you explain that, and what does it get you in addition to the plan that Local 150 put forward?
So we wanted to include a bonding portion in order to address our bridge need more quickly. I think IDOT will tell you that because there's been such deferred maintenance that they're actually having to replace bridges sooner than they expected, and that's increased the amount of money they need. So we want to make sure that our bridges can start being addressed quickly. The
state of Illinois, it's no secret, has the worst credit rating of any state in the nation. How does that affect the state's ability to go to the bond market and borrow money? And is that a factor here?
Traditionally, transportation bonds have been easier to back because those are revenues that are very predictable and consistent. So our feeling is that the bond markets will recognize that the revenue is there and that it's an investment in the state, but understand that probably a larger pay-as-you-go component in a final bill is a good idea.
And we'll see where this goes. Thank you for explaining, laying some of this out. I imagine we'll hear from some conservative critics who don't want to see any new gas tax. So it'll be interesting to see how you overcome or tangle with those objections in the coming weeks. We're back in a moment with Senator Dan McConkey, who has a constitutional amendment proposal of his own to counter the Democratic plan to raise the progressive income tax. We're back in a moment.